Thank you for joining me back on this last segment of the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast to talk some more offensive side of the ball in the NFL, this time focusing in on the Indianapolis Colts. How do they really keep up with everything that's going on in the AFC South? You're talking about the Texans. They have probably the most impressive offense in that division, let alone the entire AFC conference. I don't have to mention everybody that they have. It's good. It's gained enough headlines already. Then you look at the Tennessee Titans, their addition of Tyler Boyd to DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard also in there incorporated as that starting running back now to replace Derrick Henry. So they have some firepower on that side of the ball as well. And then for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, Brian Thomas out of LSU, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne. All these offenses in the AFC South have very young and exciting talents to base their entire game plan off of. And now, a lot of people tend to forget about the Indianapolis Colts, but they're secretly sort of hiding something in their offensive scheme and really keeping it to themselves. Where I think now that I've learned about it more, reading some of these informations and some of these articles, that it could be something to look out for as well. Because last year, as a few of you will know, their starting running back Jonathan Taylor and quarterback Anthony Richardson weren't really in the starting lineup too much together, with the injury that Anthony Richardson suffered to his shoulder that really ended his season. Jonathan Taylor not really being in there the early part of the year, and that was a shame because that duo could have been very deadly playing together, and all the different options they could have ran with both of them. And now both of them, they were in training camp together last year, but the regular season really didn't work out timing wise with their injuries. So now heading into this offseason, you're able to bring back Michael Pittman. You draft A.D. Mitchell. Josh Downs is another underrated young wide receiver that had a great year as a rookie last season. And they have this special young nucleus now to use. And with Pittman also coming back now as that leader in that receiving group, he was asked about the potential that this offense has, and specifically with Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson hopefully being healthy for the majority of this upcoming season. He mentioned the RPO scheme, trying to use that a lot more in 2024 and how beneficial that could be for their offense, to which he said, I think we could have the best RPO game in the whole NFL. We went to the RPO a lot last year, and just being able to add Anthony's legs, I mean, he could add a whole other aspect, which is you can't really look or load up the box. He can pull it and throw it. You can't really concentrate most of the defense towards Jonathan Taylor. And Jonathan Taylor certainly has the potential to be one of the best running backs in the NFL. He showed it a couple of years ago in 2021, where he led the NFL in rushing yards at over 1,800 yards, 18 total touchdowns in 2021 as well. But last year, he missed the first 4 games, and those were really one of the main parts of the season where Anthony Richardson did play and was doing pretty well in a couple of those games. But the timing didn't work out, obviously, like I mentioned, with the shoulder injury that Richardson suffered. And now just being able to add those two together, and adding the production that Jonathan Taylor showed, at least in the later part of last year, recording over 700 yards in just 10 games and 7 touchdowns in 10 games. That's a very efficient and very impressive ratio for Jonathan Taylor to sort of show that he is capable of putting up those running back one numbers. And you add a guy that's built like a running back, that's just huge, has a tremendous arm in Anthony Richardson. It could be very exciting for the Indianapolis Colts on the offensive side of the ball. And to add on to that point, Anthony Richardson, I mentioned he had a couple of games where he was very impressive. He had 2 games with over 250 total yards and multiple scores throughout or through the air and through the ground before suffering that shoulder injury. And I want to say it was against the Jaguars and against the Los Angeles Rams. They ended up losing both of those games, but he certainly wasn't the reason they did. He carried that offense already as a rookie. You could see the potential just jumping off the charts. And both him and Jonathan Taylor are extremely difficult to bring down. And now you add that element of having those two guys back there in the backfield, having the defense focus in on, all right, who actually has the ball, who kept the ball when they're reading the defense and playing off of that read option. Does Anthony Richardson pull it? Does Jonathan Taylor keep it and runs through a hole that the defense is just frozen off of the fact that they're trying to read who has the ball and now they're too late to get over to Jonathan Taylor, or they overpressure Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson is escaping out the back? That in and of itself is very dangerous, and now you have all this talent on the outsides, whereas last year, Josh Downs was getting into his own. He was very impressive, but he didn't really have everything there to be comfortable. Now in his second year, I think more so he'll be impressive off of that. And Michael Pittman coming off of his best year, I expect that to continue. And now you add A.D. Mitchell, who has a tremendous chip on his shoulder as well, being drafted very late, not being happy about it, wanting to prove a lot of people wrong. I think that'll be exciting for the Indianapolis Colts to play on. And I have a comment here from my man Eric Rodriguez, saying Anthony Richardson has potential, but I think the Colts screwed up not offering Gardner Minshew a contract. He was arguably one of the best quarterbacks with his back against the wall last season. Always need a good backup. That's a great point. I've talked about the Raiders and now having Gardner Minshew as well, and that's a great point just from the fact that I just talked about Anthony Richardson having that season-ending shoulder surgery. How does he look after a season pretty much on the bench, recovering from that shoulder injury? And if he does come back, there are some times where he says that he's not going to change his playing style. While that might be, admirable to not be scared, it could be a little bit reckless in some people's estimation if you continue to play that way and you now don't have Gardner Minshew. This offense could really suffer from him not being out there on the field compared to last year. To Eric's point, you had Gardner Minshew to come in there and the offense could still float to him. It is a good point to bring up, and it is really vital to talk about now because of the idea of them running an RPO. Anthony Richardson running the ball more. Could he still get injured that way, taking all of these hits? Is this the right way of going about it? While it may have some great benefits in one end, it still could have some pretty bad downsides on the other side of it. So there is some good and bad with it. It's similar to what the Baltimore Ravens run because they don't have the best of options at the wide receiver position. Lamar Jackson is able, because he's so elusive, to not take as many of those hits, and Anthony Richardson isn't built like Lamar Jackson, obviously, so he's probably going to withstand or try to withstand some more hits from the defense, which could be a bit scary. But if it does go well, and he stays relatively healthy and can just muster through that pain and through the hits that he takes, this team will be very scary on the offensive side of the ball. There's going to be a transition period, definitely trying to fit every piece together, but if they're able to incorporate it, maybe not too much, to preserve Anthony Richardson a little bit more and keep him playing throughout the entirety of 2024, I think this team could be very competitive in some games. On the defensive side of the ball, that could be their Achilles heel, but they have a ton of potential on this offense and a lot of exciting players that should get a lot of their fans excited. And while this year might not be the year where they're competing for the division title or they're trying to get into the playoffs, I think they've built now a great foundation where maybe in a year or two, if they bring some more stars over to help out that defensive line, help out that secondary, they could certainly be in that mix there for a wild card spot and just anywhere in the playoffs. It's an exciting time in the AFC. It just seems like the conference is getting that much better each and every year. It should make for some great games in 2024. I'm looking forward to watching a lot of games in every division and every conference. So in saying that, that's what the Colts are doing. That's probably going to do it for this episode of the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. I want to thank you guys for tuning into today's show. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Make sure to also follow us on other social medias like Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok for more of this network's content. And if you want to see more of me and this show, check out the GSMC Sports Network channel and the GSMC Podcast Network channel on YouTube, where Every live show is recorded and posted on those two channels. YouTube Shorts are posted on there as well, and individual segment videos where you guys can tune into a specific portion of the live episode if you don't have time to watch an entire show. As a reminder, tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more football conversations and NFL discussions with me, Manny Maradiaga, as your host. Thanking you guys again for joining me today, and I'll see you guys back here again tomorrow to wrap up the week.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to